Okay, I think we will go ahead and get started. Amazingly, we had probably like 275 people between Meetup and Splash. We probably had close to 300 people register for this event, which compared to our normal in-person meetings is at least 100 more than what we usually get. So it'll be interesting to see how many actually show up. Looks like we're at 71 so far and counting. But welcome to our very first virtual Twin Cities Tableau user group event. So yes, as you guys enter the chat room, if you haven't done so already, let us know what city you're from. We just thought it would be a fun way for you guys to check out how the chat works and for us to get a sense of who's out there, who's joining us. So as I said, thankfully for the technology that we have available to us, advance my screen here. We can enjoy the benefits of continuing to meet even though we are socially distanced. But with that comes all of the oh, hold on one second. I'm paused so you can't see my screen. There. All right. Can you guys see my GIF? Okay. I was like, why is nobody laughing at this? I thought this would be much funnier than okay.
You were all just all muted.
Well, I was looking at your faces, Trisha, and Katrina. I was like, they're not laughing either. You guys just don't think I'm funny. Okay, so yes. So with technology, inevitably comes the hurdles. And so while not only is this our first ever virtual Tableau user group, we had to make a last minute pivot from Zoom to WebEx for reasons that we won't get into. But so please keep that in mind and maybe give us a little bit of grace as we work through this for the first time. But we're still going to try to have fun, and we're still going to try to share all the knowledge and learning and keep this community alive while we're so far apart from each other. And we miss you, and we can't wait to see your faces again. So thanks for joining. We have a pretty cool agenda today. We definitely won't be spending our normal 2.5 hours. If that happens, I will be shocked. But we're going to try to do our usual get to know a member, where we would love for you to use the raise your hand function within WebEx to volunteer, to answer just a few basic questions about yourself and what you do with Tableau. And in our in-person sessions, we would normally just pick people from the audience in a very cruel way. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that yet in this virtual setting, so we'll see how it feels. But if I pick you, if we go that route and they pick you and you really, really don't want to, you can just pretend that you don't know how to unmute your mic, and we'll pick somebody else. Aside from that, we have Luke Komisky from Data Drive. He's going to cover the latest features from the 2020.1 release. And then we'll follow that up with Katrina Johnson from Tessellation, who actually is their newest employee. So congratulations, Katrina, on that. She's going to give us a presentation about upskilling, or skilling up during quarantine, how we should be using our time, taking advantage of some of the education that's out there right now. And then if you guys have attended a user group before, you will know, you'll be familiar with the best thing I learned. We're going to try to do that again. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, it is where we open it up to the audience to share any like little micro tidbits of information, tech tips, like something small but mighty and useful that you might have picked up somewhere along the way. something that you're like, man, like I wish I had known that like a year ago or whatever. It would have saved me a whole bunch of time. So start thinking maybe about some of those things right now, because at the very end, we're going to open it up to you guys, and we'll probably try to follow that raise your hand function as well. And so you'll raise your hand. You can share your screen if you want to. Totally don't have to. Doesn't need to be formal. Doesn't need to be a prepared thing by any means. But sharing our collective knowledge with each other is one of the core tenets of what we do here. So we didn't want to just revert to this model where we're just sharing, we've got the same, 5, 6, 7 people that are sharing content over and over and over, because that's not what we're about. So I've got just a couple more slides here. So we're going to cover a couple things. So mark your calendars for these upcoming events. There's some pretty awesome ones here. And we'll send out this PowerPoint in a follow-up email, and these little arrows have links to the actual registration pages. A couple of them are actually tomorrow. So if you were going to like, oh, I'll look at that later, don't wait, because you will miss some of these really awesome, some like projects and competitions that are going on right now. So the Data Viz Challenge, the Tableau Data Viz Challenge, is due on May 4th. That's actually not coming up fairly soon. So if you wanted to participate in that as just a way to practice your skills, flex your skills, show your skills off, that's a really fun one. And so this is a link to a YouTube video that goes over how to participate, like what's the criteria and all that good stuff. We have these two, or this visualizing gender equality is an ongoing thing that's going to last, I believe, the whole year. And this one is super cool because it is, it's aimed at identifying issues throughout the world that are strongly correlated with extreme gender discrimination. The one that they focus on here is obstetric fistulas. If you don't know what that is, be my friend and Google it. I'm not going to explain it here, but they're doing some really, really awesome work. So you can participate in that if you have data sets that you want to share with them, if you want to help them visualize and analyze data, or just volunteer any of your skill sets. So link to that there. And then lastly, because all of the Tableau user groups around the world are happening virtually right now, you can attend any one that you want. So I've got a link here to sort of the main page that Tableau keeps all of these events on. So if you were wondering what the London Tug was like, or the Ireland Tug, or the Michigan Tug, or wherever that might be, you can go check those out there and then come back and tell us how much better we are than they. Okay, I think that's all my slides. Without further ado, I am going to pass this over to Luke, who's going to share with us about the new features in the latest version of Tableau. Take it away, Luke.
Do you want to try to get to know a member?
Oh yeah, thanks very much. I totally forgot about that. This is why I keep you around. Okay. So yes, let's check and see. I don't know, Alyssa, are you the person who can see people who, if they raise their hand, or am I able to see that?
I can see that too.
Okay. So I have a list of 92 attendees here. So let's just take like 10 seconds while you evaluate whether you want to be the person to raise your hand. I'm actually going to, Luke, can you pass that back to me, and then I can put up the questions?
Still got it.
Oh, I do. Okay. Perfect. Thanks for all the grace, guys. All right. These are the questions. Can you guys see that? Okay.
No, those are not.
No? Okay. Hold on. I think I need to, there we go. Almost there. There we go. Okay. And we'll just do from the current slide. Okay. All right, now I can open up my participant dialog box and check and see if we've got any hands raised. So yeah, the questions are not scary and you will not be graded, but this is a great way for us to just get to know each other, as the title would suggest.
And the raise your hand button is on the right-hand screen, I believe, under attendees.
Good call. It's like, I think it's in a couple different places.
Or you can unmute yourself and just go for it.
Yeah. I think we have 2 people, right?
This is Sam Epley. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yep.
I can hear you.
We can hear you, Sam.
Awesome. So my name is Sam Epley. I work with Luke Comiskey actually at Data Drive. I am a analytics consultant, fairly new to the Data Drive family. I've been there. This is my 4th week. I work with a lot of different types of data with the client that I support. It's a lot of geographical data and getting more familiarized with level of detail calculations. It's been a while since I've been to those, but I've been using Tableau for about 2.5, 3 years. The role that I transitioned from, they were a Power BI company. So getting back kind of into the swing of things with Tableau, it's wonderful. What I'm good at in Tableau, hard to answer. So I'm going to allow Luke to potentially answer that question. But Tableau features or functions that I struggle with. Level of detail calculations for me have kind of been the point where I'm confused about what's going on. But I've been able to go through a lot of the Tableau e-learnings, which right now are actually free, which is great. Go through and understand, include, fixed, exclude, what do they do, how do they work, why do we use them? So, working on getting unstruggled with that. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. They can be tricky, but I know Luke has given at least 1, not 2 presentations on how that breaks down. So you get a good use of your fingertips on that one.
Definitely.
Thank you. All right, it looks like Jeremy would like to also volunteer. Can we unmute Jeremy? All right, Jeremy, you're unmuted. Go for it.
Guys, yeah, so Jeremy Foreman, I'm based in LA, so hello from wherever you guys are. I am an independent consultant that does a lot with nonprofit management, and so I am actually looking at using Tableau to chart where our members are for particular organizations, doing a density map. We had a change.org campaign about 6 weeks ago where we got just under 500,000 signatures. And so now I want to see where all those people are. So that's my special use case. I have not really used the product. I've just been on a couple demos and see this is the tool that I need to be on. I'm a Salesforce platform user. I've been there for about 10 years. And so I'm looking at the Customer 360 and incorporating all of the different products into my tech stack as I am starting a social enterprise that'll run a nonprofit itself.
Awesome. Well, welcome. If you could share some of that sunshine and warmth over here in Minnesota, love it very much. We were just talking about how it looked so nice and warm and just inviting outside this morning, and then you went outside and it was like, not today.
Well, it's funny because I usually in a Zoom call I have my LA background with a perfect blue sky just in case,
Just in case, just to make us all feel terrible. All right, thanks, Jeremy. Nice to meet you.
You as well.
Okay, maybe let's do we have any other hands raised? Yes,
A
we do.
couple more.
Let's do Kavitha. Unmute Kavitha. There we go. All right, Kavitha, you're unmuted.
Kavitha Mupidi. I am at Prime Therapeutics. I might have briefly met Luke at one point when he was with Prime. I'm an IT auditor, and I work with the internal audit team. And I kind of trying to set up and start up that whole analytics shop in the audit space. So because I have a reporting and analytics background, I'm trying to stand that up and currently analyzing a lot of financial data. We use Alteryx and Tableau for visualization. I've been using Tableau for, I would say about 3 years now. And what am I good at in Tableau? It's hard to say. My development is completely driven off of our use cases. So whatever use case comes up, I kind of try, because I'm self-learning as I go, trying to, whatever use case comes up, my strongest point is just learning and implementing that and going from there. Features and functions I struggle with. I wish I could incorporate a lot of variety in graphs, but somehow my use cases always get stuck on your bar graphs and such. Really like, okay, what else can I use? I'm sick and tired of these. So I keep looking for new stuff, but it's like I can't ever seem to use them for my use case. So that's one thing I constantly go on Tableau and look at the daily business to see if there's something funky that I can use.
Yeah,
that's me.
All right, well, thanks, Kavitha. That was really, really great, and everybody knows Luke, so I'm not surprised. Yeah, isn't that funny how like I feel the same way sometimes too? It's like the bar chart again, but you know what? Sometimes you can't argue with it, so don't feel bad. All right, let's do one more. How about let's do Taylor. All right,
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we sure can.
All right, my name is Taylor Van Osbury. I'm the Director of Business Intelligence for Minnesota United FC, the MLS team in Minnesota. You may have seen the new spaceship in St. Paul. That's where we like to play our games. I am in charge of
soccer, right? I just want to be clear.
Yes. Yep. Okay. That's soccer.
Just checking.
Yep. So I'm in charge of anything from the data warehouse that we just implemented this year to visualizing the data in there to running our CRM system for our sales team. So that kind of gives a wide variety of data that we use, from ticketing data from people purchasing tickets to sponsorship data from all of our sponsors that we have and the contracts that we have with them, to the CRM data of activities that our sales reps are having on a daily basis with our season ticket members. I've been using Tableau for probably a year and a half-ish now. Before, we didn't have a warehouse or any visualization software, so it was all in Excel. And so I'd say that's one thing that I struggle with Tableau, is trying to convert how I did things in Excel to how I do them in Tableau. And one thing I'm good at in Tableau is Googling a question when I can't get past an error code in Tableau to figure out how to get past it.
Yep. You can't become an expert in Tableau without becoming an expert in Googling all the things. Thanks, Taylor. That's an interesting position. I would assume that you guys have a rather lean team in terms of your analytics?
Yes. So our business intelligence team is a team of 2 people, and they're both named Taylor. So we're a team of Taylors.
That's awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for sharing. Okay. All right. Now we'll go ahead and have everybody mute themselves, except for Luke, obviously, just so we can cut down on the background noise. Not that there's like, I'm the first person. I got kids and dogs and husbands and whatnot running around here too. So I'm also going to go on mute, so I don't interfere with Luke's awesome presentation. So one more time, I'm going to pass this over to Luke, and he is going to start his presentation.
Awesome. And while you're doing that, I would say to everyone who has their hand still raised, like keep it raised, because I think it'd be kind of fun to see if we could slot it in between. So yeah, definitely keep your hand raised, and I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, I'm gonna assume you guys can see it. Sure. All right.
Luke, before you do that, sorry, we forgot to mention one thing about questions. So if you have questions during these presentations, chat them in the chat box or the Q&A. We've got people monitoring that. We are going to try to save the questions until the end, unless there are just numerous ones and very pointed. But feel free to chat your questions as they come up, and we'll get to them.
Yeah. And I will make this deck and any of the Tableau dashboard stuff that you see throughout this presentation available at the end. And yeah, I'm excited to jump in. So thank you all for taking the time to attend the Twin Cities Tableau user group. It's pretty awesome to see over 100 people joining this thing. It's probably the first time I've ever talked to my laptop with so many people watching. So really cool experience, guys. I'm going to be covering off on all of the new features that came with Tableau version 2020.1 that was released towards the end of February. I'm hoping that by now many of you are probably upgraded to this version, or maybe looking to be upgraded to this version. And yeah, there's a lot of really great features that I'll be covering off on a lot of the big hitters, but like most feature releases, I really recommend digging into the release notes, because it's amazing what kind of little nuggets of information you'll find in there that could really help your organization. All right, so for the first big feature that came out with Tableau Desktop, this is probably the biggest kind of headliner feature that has been out on the Tableau forums for a number of years, and it's the idea of dynamic parameters. It's been the #1 voted idea on Tableau Desktop usage. And for those who are unfamiliar with what parameters are within Tableau, they are basically variables or fixed values you can set within Tableau Desktop. And they're really fantastic for being able to kind of set a variable that a user can set on their own that's disconnected from the data set. And it allows you to have those users be able to change the values, and then have it impact something that takes place on your dashboard. And for the longest time, you would have to fix the values of your parameters where you really couldn't control what was going to be in the values for a user to select. You could really only set it once, and then it was just kind of set that way until somebody came back in and changed it. And really what that led to is just a ton of tedious workbook maintenance. So every month people were going in and having to change the value of the parameters. I do a lot of consulting work, so I want to create stuff that is easy to set it and forget it. And I'm a developer, so I'm inherently lazy, and I don't want to be going in every month and changing the settings over and over again. So what's really great from a dynamic parameter perspective is that parameters are finally useful now. I can use these because I know that they will continue to adapt with the changing data structure. So to put this into practice, I'm using the Superstore dataset for dynamic parameters. Just a really simple viz here of having a dynamic category selector that allows me to choose between the 3 different product categories that exist, and then be able to change the shape on the screen. When you create a parameter now, there's going to be 2 new features that are going to be interesting for you to look at. The first one I'll point out is the dynamic part of it, which is down here. You can now flip to a setting called When Workbook Opens, which basically means that Tableau, when this workbook opens, or when a user opens up your dashboard on Tableau Server or Tableau Online, Tableau is going to go and search this column within your data and be able to populate the parameter list based off the values it finds here. So I've set it to go off the category column within the orders data set, which is currently these 3. The other one that's kind of interesting to think about is the value when the workbook opens. And this is really fun from 2 perspectives that I can think about. And I would say they're more intermediate concepts. One is if you're using parameters to try to keep track of certain dates, it might be useful to have this every time somebody opens up a workbook or opens up your dashboard, for the parameter to be set to the latest date. That's a really helpful use case. And then the second one is maybe more from a security perspective, that I created a field called users category. And I just created a dummy field, but for a lot of you guys that are using row level security or have secure data sources where you know what a user, like who the user is on Tableau server or what kind of data that they can see, you can actually create a field like this where since I know that like the user right now is Luke, I know that Luke is responsible for office supplies. So every time that Luke opens up this workbook or views my dashboard, I want to preset this parameter value to office supplies. So that's the kind of like hack I created right now just to show off this functionality. So now I'm going to do something to kind of prove how this all works behind the scenes. I'm going to go into the Excel workbook behind the scenes, create a new category called pet supplies, save it. And then for us to get a new value showing up in this parameter list, I'll have to reopen the workbook, but on server, you can imagine this is just like reopening the web page that has your dashboard on it. And two things are going to happen. I currently have this set to furniture. Because I set the default value to be set to whoever the user is, you're going to see the parameter value go to office supplies because that's what Luke runs. But secondly, you're also going to see a new value start to pop in here. So I'm going to close out of this. Open it back up. I forgot I was using an extract. Please hold. I'd refresh my extract and then open up my workbook again. So as the Tableau workbook is opening up, Tableau is going into the category field and checking to see what categories exist in my data set. And so that's why now my parameter, without me having to change anything, was able to add pet supplies as a new value within my parameter without me or other developer having to go in every week, every month, and manually set it. This is huge. And then the second piece that you maybe noticed is I had it set to furniture before I left, but when I came in, Tableau recognized that I was the user and I run office supplies, so it was able to change the parameter value to office supplies. Another use case, again, would be changing the value to like today's date would be another useful use case if you're looking to kind of create a dynamic analysis for your users. All right. Next up, as far as a big feature, is the Viz animation. So giving users now the ability to see and understand changing data when the users are sorting, filtering, adding fields, and using dashboard actions. So for me, when I heard about this, I thought this was like a little bit of just like, eye candy and, just something kind of like fun and whimsical to add to the product. But I've actually been thoroughly impressed with what animations can do to help add a whole new level of analysis. And when it works really well, like it can really have an impact on effective data storytelling. This one's super easy to show off. To find the settings for animations, you just need to go up to Format and Animations, and it's a pretty easy to understand way of setting up animations, how quickly you want animations to move, whether you want things to happen simultaneously or in sequence. And an easy example of that is as I start to filter out regions, I set the animations to crazy slow just to show off how awesome they are. And this is set up as sequential, so you'll see that it adjusts for the space and then it kind of brings in the lines. But it's amazing, even just in the simple example, like it just makes the dashboard feel more interactive and just like, I guess, more engaging for users. I think probably the best use case for Viz animations for me is using scatter plots. So I made like a scatter plot here of just looking at profit ratio by sales for all the various subcategories. And you can imagine, like as we move through the data, I can start to tell kind of a fun story, like with a live audience, of how the various subcategories are like moving around through each year of the order date. So being able to talk about like year over year movement within the subcategories, but make it very interactive. It's just like a fun little use case for it. So I love using animations when it comes to scatter plots, because there's just something about seeing that movement that I think gets people to react to how quickly dots are moving, how far they have to move, at what angle. It just makes it much more interactive than when Tableau just was like, here's a scatter plot. Oh, you filtered. Here's a totally different scatter plot. Use the same picture for buffer calcs. So the buffer calculations are a way to visualize the distance around point locations using circular boundaries. So this was demoed at the last Tableau conference. It was super cool. I love how Tableau continues to put really cool investments around like geospatial. And I love how like buffer calculations are fairly easy to understand. You're basically just taking a geographical point and then drawing a circular boundary around it. And I'm excited to see where this goes as it continues to be built out further and further. I have a really cool example that actually takes advantage of just using two non-spatial files. And I think like when I think about the people I work with, a lot of time these companies don't have like good geographical data to use. And so I love that, like if you've got anything that's just like latitude, longitudes, or using other software to figure out latitude and longitudes, that Tableau now has the ability to like make points, make lines, add buffers around these points. So it's making geospatial analysis more approachable for people to use. So to show off this, I grabbed data for all of the station locations for Nice Ride. It's a bike rideshare service here in the Twin Cities. And so this is where all the stations are located. And then I was able to add like buffers around it by using the following calculation. All right. So to create a buffer, you only need three different arguments. The first one is you need to be able to supply a geographical point, so some kind of geometry into it. So I'm using Tableau's other function for make point to take the latitude, longitudes that are in the data set and be able to make a geographical point. And then the next argument is just the number and then the units of measure for that number. So if it's 150 feet, if it's 150 meters, if it's 150 miles, you can see how it changes as you change the unit of measure. One thing to note about these buffers is that you're seeing that it's still using the generated latitude longitudes of Tableau. So like they all kind of count. You'll notice that I'm not using like circles like you'd imagine, but I'm having to use map because it's drawing on this map how big that buffer actually is. So like for most of you who have been using circles, like as you zoom in and out of your map, like the circle tends to remain the same, but with buffer, it's all based off the distance around that point. So you can see that they're really small. And then as I move in, they get much bigger. So that's kind of like the small difference that I've seen with using these buffers. To take it a step further, I actually took all of these stations and I was like trying to figure out some like cool use cases. And some of the cool use cases I've seen for using buffers is to like understand like how many competitors are like around my area. So a very like easy example I could use just using this data set was how many different Nice Ride bike stations are within like, we'll call it 100 feet of another bike station. So this is where the U of M is. So you can imagine there's probably a high density of stations around that area. But what's cool about it is being able to use the CSV data that all it has is latitude, longitudes in it, and to be able to use buffer. So I can just basically join these two station files together, and in one on my left side of my station, I can just create a buffer that says, all right, like you know where my station is, but create a space around it that is 100 feet, and then be able to use geospatial join of intersects on a make point of the other stations that exist. So these are two files that like aren't typical GIS type files. They just happen to have latitude longitudes in them, but I'm able to use them to show, like, you can imagine you can use this for your competition, you can use this for your customers, be able to join two different files together to figure out who is within my circular buffer. So like I said, like, I think this is just the beginning of where I think buffer can actually go, but I'm really excited about this first step in making geospatial analysis approachable. So those were the big headliners for the Tableau desktop side. Let's move on quickly to some of the new features that came with Tableau Prep for those of you guys that are using it. The three that I'll be able to demo for you guys is the pause data updates, level of detail calcs, and connections highlighter. The connection highlighter is just a really nice, like, little feature that Tableau added. For those using Tableau Prep, you've got your list of files that you have connections to, and then you've got your various inputs that generally are your starting points are on the left side of your canvas. The connections highlighter simply allows that as you start clicking through your inputs, you can start to understand which of your data connections are being used. This is just a really nice add for those who had a little bit more complicated Tableau prep flows to be able to figure out which connections were actually in use. So a nice little visual cue. Probably one of the biggest additions for people who are really into heavy Tableau prep usage is to be able to pause and resume data updates. And the reason behind this was Tableau Prep was very purposely built as a visual tool that every time you click on these intermediate steps, you can see that it's going through and querying your data to try to build you a very visual approach to seeing, like, the profile of your data, to understand, like, you know, what is the distribution of the numbers and the fields. But to pull that off, like, you have to query the data. And for some of us who are using Tableau Prep on rather large data sources, and we knew we needed to do a bunch of intermediate cleanup steps, the few seconds we were losing on trying to profile our data every time we clicked into these things was painful. So all they added was an ability to pause data updates, which allows you to be able to do all the same steps, but without just, like, missing a few of those, like, seconds of having to go back and query the data over and over again. The last one I'm really excited about, just more from, like, a performance perspective, is Tableau has now incorporated fixed level of detail calcs within Tableau Prep. So for those who are, like, more intermediate users or have been using Tableau for quite some time, you already know the power of level of detail calcs and why they're important to have. A really, like, common use case that I've seen for fixed level of detail calcs with the Superstore data set is, like, I have sales in my data set, but what if I want to know, like, what are the average sales by state? I would have to build a special, like, kind of Tableau visualization that only had state for granularity to be able to figure that out. But level of detail calcs allow us to play around with that granularity a little bit more. They didn't originally release that with Tableau Prep for the ability to do fixed level of calcs, and now if I want to build a fixed level of calc, I've got two ways of going about it. So again, if I want to figure out what are the average sales by state, the way I go about doing it is, like, I go to my state column where I've got the ability to add better job of zooming here, adding a calculated field, and then they've got this option here for fixed LOD. And this is a very, like, nice user interface for being able to say, all right, I want to, for each state, I want to figure out the sales. Tableau Prep does a nice job of profiling the data to help me understand the distribution. And then I can just say average sales, then average sales by state. And so then you can see I've got this new column now that has 49 unique values. There's only 49 states in this data set. But from a table perspective, you can see, like, these two rows must be at least the same state. So I've got the average sales by state marked in each of these rows. This is really useful because, like, for those who've used Tableau and had to do a lot of performance tuning, Fixed LOD calcs are really powerful, but to have them always be in Tableau Desktop can be a little bit performant hindrance. Like it's always ideal to be able to put a lot of these calculations directly in the data source. So if you think about using these fixed level of detail calcs in Tableau Prep, you can in a way stamp some of these values in your data source, so then Tableau doesn't have to calculate them on the fly. It's going to make it much easier for you to build very fast performing data sets because Tableau has already gone through the effort of figuring out the average sales by or the LOD that you're trying to do. And then for those who are like more used to writing level of detail calcs, I really like the feature that you don't have to go in this fixed LOD. You can actually just go to custom calculations and then do your normal fixed type syntax. And then two other things that I will also highlight for Tableau Prep is you've got the ability now to like embed your cloud credentials for your Prep Conductor. What this means is like Prep Conductor is essentially the add-on that allows you to have Tableau Server or Tableau Online run your prep flows for you. But having the ability to like when you publish up your prep workflow to run what you need to do, you want the ability to like put the cloud credentials, the service account, or your user credentials that are going to be needed to access the various systems. You want to be able to embed that directly in there. So now Prep Conductor has the ability to embed those cloud credentials directly in there. And then lastly, like a common issue that we've seen is that Tableau Server might have an older version of Tableau Prep or Tableau Conductor than the people who are using the Tableau Prep builder on the desktop. And so there's always like this kind of inherent versioning issue. So what's really nice is that within Tableau Prep, you've got the ability to disable the incompatible conductor features. So that basically just stops your developers who may be using a more latest version of Tableau Prep to be able to kind of turn off those features that would otherwise like break because the versioning is going to be off. All right. And then lastly, I'm sure we have a number of Tableau administrators in the audience, and it's always good to give some shout outs to some really cool features that are happening there. First and foremost, really exciting, the login-based license management is gotten a lot easier. There's no more product keys that need to be passed around once you get into 2020.1. For a lot of people who have to administer large deployments, it gets really frustrating to try to track down product keys, and when people leave the organization to be able to like reclaim them and assign them. Now it's all going to be based off the logins that they use to get into your Tableau Server or Tableau Online, which makes it just really easy and straightforward to be able to manage your own deployment instead of having to worry about sharing product keys all over the organization. Another big feature of 2020.1 is that TabPy, which is essentially like the service that allowed you to integrate Python code directly within Tableau Desktop, officially got to a version 1.0 release. This is super relevant for organizations that might not let you use an open source software or something that isn't supported by an organization. So by Tableau laying their stake down and saying, all right, like version 1.0 is available, and we're going to be supporting it. It's made for a much easier install, user authentication, security. There's even like pre-built models in there for like easy to access sentiment analysis, variance analysis. There's some really great features to be looking in there for your organizations looking to see how can we bring our Python code closer to where we're developing our visualizations. Nested project permissions are really great for site admins. A number of versions back, Tableau had the ability to have nested projects for you basically to have like your department have a project, and then within that you could set up like a development environment and a production environment. And it was really intended on a way to help better organize the different ways organizations wanted to work. And many people tend to think in like directories and subfolders. So that was a really great feature. But the one thing that they were missing, I was so happy that they finally added, was nested project permissions, which means that like before this release, your highest project was always the one that determined what the security of every sub project was. So it made it near impossible for site admins to set up a department like a marketing department folder, and there couldn't be a development folder and a production folder because they would all have the same permissions as the parent folder. And so nested project permissions allow for a little bit more control to have projects do what they need to do best, which is content organization, while also providing security flexibility to secure the sub projects differently. So great feature there. External file store for those who are really kind of deep on the server management side. That's just going to allow for much easier backups and easier to manage, basically allowing you to take the file store into your own NAS setup and allow you to just be able to do system backups much easier and faster and kind of decoupled from Tableau server. You will need the server management add-on to be doing that. And then the last one was like the reason why I love like digging through some of these release notes is because I don't know if you guys heard about this. Maybe I missed it, but like I was reading about the analytics extension API, and it was actually really cool because it allowed you to basically bring your own programming language into Tableau. And so you could you basically like they took what TabPy and RServe, the things that were allowing you to bring Python and R and integrate them into Tableau. They brought that service as just a general API that can process code. So you can kind of write your own functions and call your own functions within the Tableau language. If everything I just said in the last like 30 seconds is like super confusing, I actually took the time about like a half an hour ago to like figure out how I could demo this because I think it is so cool, but it's way more cool if you can actually like see what's happening. I set up the analytics extensions just basically using the pre-built, there's like a pre-built connector out there. So where you would have changed that, where you changed it in the past was in the manage analytics extensions connection. This is where from prior versions you would have gone if you were ever using Python or R directly within Tableau, you would have set your TabPy or RServe connection here. You get within manage extensions. I just went to a sample gallery that is really easy. All you have to do is just copy and paste this information in there, and it magically works. And this basically means that I now have the ability to run code that is sitting in this repository, which happens to be JavaScript in this case, to be able to call a function. And so by having that running in the background, I've got the ability to write something like a euro calculation, which may look a little weird if you haven't put code, non-Tableau calculation code within Tableau, but I'm basically saying like, I have got my own function, Tableau, that returns a decimal number. And I want to call my function convert, which happens to be a JavaScript function that's sitting out somewhere else. And I want you to convert my sum of sales from US dollars to euros. And so what this JavaScript is doing is like calling out to to an external service that updates the currency exchange rate every hour. So your users basically have like almost like a real-time feed of doing like currency conversions in Tableau by using this setup. So I can just like pull euro calculations out there and somebody can like check my math, but it is going to be able to do a conversion to whatever currency I want it to on the fly. So like in this case, I believe the currency exchange rates are updated every hour. And so this will give like more of a real-time analysis instead of having to like hard code in a conversion rate into your Tableau.
Luke, where were you last week when I built a web data connector to do an exchange? This is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. This was so cool. And like, I don't think anyone was really like pumping this up. And once I started reading about it, I was like, this is awesome. So there are examples out there of using like JavaScript and Haskell, and you can still use R or Python, but some really powerful way for kind of more like data science heavy or programmer heavy type environments to start bringing in their own code directly into doing analysis within Tableau, which is really cool.
You get 2 thumbs up.
Yes. And that's all I got. That is pretty much like the high level summary of all the latest and greatest features of 2020.1. I think we're only like probably weeks or maybe a month away from 2020.2, which is going to have its own mind-blowing features like data modeling. But Yeah, 2020.1 was packed with a ton of great features. Dynamic parameters is going to be a game changer. Viz animations are just amazing for visual storytelling. And then all the other stuff that I just walked through. It was a really cool release, and appreciate you guys taking the time to learn about it.
That was awesome, Luke. Thank you. Trisha, do we have any questions in the Q&A or the chat?
It doesn't look like we have any questions. We do have a comment from an individual that says, a quick comment on the dynamic parameter IIRC from the beta version. The automatic refresh only works on the desktop when the workbook is opened on the server. The refresh is determined by the cache policy.
Ooh, okay.
Which is good to know. So hitting refresh won't update the data is the bottom line from the server.
Mm.
That is good to know. Thank you, stranger.
The balloon popping over there. Just kidding, a detail. We love you. I have a question for you, Luke. So when you were showing the LOD calcs in Tableau Prep, and so there were two ways to do it. You can obviously just write your LOD calc as you would in Tableau Desktop, but then there was this other sort of more visual step-by-step walkthrough on how to do it. So I'm curious if you do the step-by-step walkthrough, the guided feature, and then go back in to edit that calc, does it ever expose to you what the actual syntax is behind it?
Good question.
Changes, it shows you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Cool. What happens if you hit edit on that? Oh, it brings you to.
So edit, the edit, that one takes me back to the GUI I use. This one, yeah. So they take you back to whichever way you use. So this is probably a safer way to do it because I think more people would understand this interface.
They probably are planning on bringing that GUI into Tableau Desktop would be my guess, but until then, that could be a useful way to understand how those calcs are written.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that need a little brushing up on that.
Yeah, that's very true. Like that.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, that was fabulous, Luke. I definitely learned things, very useful things that I'm going to put into practice myself. So
awesome. To Analytics Extensions API, it's awesome. It's gonna be a game changer. Love it.
Yeah, I'm expecting like a blog post on what you covered.
For sure, coming soon.
All right, cool. Thanks, Luke. Okay, so next we have Katrina, and she's going to share with us how we can all become better Tableau users with our extra time, if we have extra time. If you're like me, you don't have any and you're just pretending that you can be a homeschool teacher and work a job and do all of the other things that you did before and have it not be absolutely nuts. All right, Katrina, you are good to go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So like Serena said, I'm going to be talking today about skilling up during quarantine. So my name is Katrina, and I am a consultant at a local analytics consulting company called Tessellation. You can find me on Twitter at DataKatrina, and I'd love to answer any questions you have, or if you think I'm totally off my rocker on this, let me know. Happy to open the discussion, and I am planning on sharing this content and providing all the links and useful resources later after this meeting. Okay, so today we're going to be answering 3 different questions. Why should I skill up? How should I skill up? And how do I maintain my skill up? Why should I skill up? These are crazy times. There's no need to elaborate on why these are crazy times. For many people, their health, jobs, and futures have become incredibly uncertain. In this recent poll, over 85% of Americans indicated they are somewhat or very concerned about the economy. And all of that stress can have serious repercussions on our mental, physical, and relational health. Like it or not, most of us have been forced to adjust to a new normal, and that concept isn't new to anyone. But for some of us, such a dramatic change to our day-to-day lives is difficult, and that is okay. So maybe you shouldn't. There's nothing that says that the only appropriate response to a global pandemic is learning a new programming language or achieving visit of the day. I know that there are lots of parents out there who are struggling to maintain some sort of normal, maybe by working odd hours or cutting down their hours, or even if you don't have others to take care of and you spend this entire time taking care of yourself, that's totally okay too. This presentation is not meant to guilt you into feeling like you're behind or not a good person because you might not be accomplishing something new or as much as someone else. However, maybe you should. If you have the capacity to improve yourself, that's great, and you should probably take advantage of that opportunity. Maybe you need something to do now that you've finished watching all of Netflix. One of my favorite quotes is by Earl Nightingale. He says, "Never give up on a dream just because of the time it will take to accomplish it. The time will pass away." Hopefully the rest of this presentation can help provide some inspiration and practical tips to take advantage of the time that you have. And please note that I am no master of these things. There are many of these areas that I need to work on right now. I made this presentation for myself just as much as I made it for the rest of you. Okay, so how should I skill up? Honestly, any way you'd like. Technology has made skilling up in anything so accessible. There's no lack of information out there to learn. But today, I wanted to call out a few technical and non-technical skills and resources to share with you to help you grow. First, the online community. There is a wonderful online analytics community out there, so I encourage you to go and engage with it. There are tons of Tableau and other analytics hangouts and webinars just like this one. This is a great opportunity to learn from leaders in industry that you may not have had a chance to see in person. I encourage you, like Serena said, to take this opportunity to attend a Tableau user group from a different city or a different industry to expose yourself to new ideas. The Tableau Conference 2019 recording site can also be a great resource to check out any sessions that you might have missed. Also, I really encourage you to share your knowledge. This is my shameless plug for you to be presenting to one of your local analytics communities. Teaching is a really great way to make sure you really understand a concept. Next, online courses. Several sites, such as the Tableau e-learnings and Plural sites, are offering free or heavily discounted memberships. And online courses can be a great way to provide a structured learning path to help provide the information that you need to progress in your learning. Data challenges. There are several community-led challenges designed to help you grow in different areas. They can help you expand your analytical skill set, ranging from how to use specific features of Tableau to presenting your data better. Lastly, data. If you want to flex your Viz from scratch skills, here are some really great websites for finding different data sets. Next, non-technical. And this is something that I've had to really work on. This is the first time that I've had to work from home for an extended period of time. And honestly, I've found it easier and easier to continue working and easier to let some of these non-technical skills fall to the side. And I hope some of these resources can help you with some of these areas, because life should not only be about work. First, mental. Now was a great time to learn something new. I recently read a couple books that talk about how the cross-pollination of ideas can help with the creative problem-solving skills. Personally, I really enjoy listening to audiobooks. I like being able to listen to books at 2 times the speed so I can get through them faster and I can do something like laundry. Here are some of the websites that have some free or discounted ebooks and audiobooks. Mindfulness is another great skill to build. Headspace is currently offering free courses to help with the stress and some meditation courses. Next, physical. Again, this one has been difficult for me. It's been pretty easy to spend a lazy evening on the couch over and over, especially when it was snowing or the weather hasn't been all that great. But I really encourage you to pay attention to these things like staying active, your sleep hygiene, hydration, and nutrition, because all of these play an important role in your overall well-being. Focus timers can be a great tool to help you keep your focus while not getting too lost in your work. There are lots of apps out there to help you track whatever you want to track. It can be something like time for a standing desk, or there's a great app that helps you track how much water you drink by providing a virtual garden for you to water. Somehow that makes it easier for me to care about those plants versus my hydration. I also highly recommend getting a standing desk. It only took a week or so before I noticed less stiffness and injuries in my workouts. It's what I'm at right now. It helps me think in a different way because you can kind of like bounce around, which is fun. But on a side note, if you do get a standing desk, be sure to get a pad to stand on because it will be way more comfortable. Lastly, social. Obviously, this has been a big change for most of us. A lot of us are missing the normal day-to-day interactions with people, so we need to make an extra effort to make sure that that bucket is still getting full. If you feel like you're lacking in this area, please reach out to someone to just say, hey, there's no need for it to be an extensive conversation. It can be a simple, hey, how's it going? Every week for the past couple weeks, the highlight of my week has just been video chats with friends and catching up. I love my boyfriend, but it's really nice to see other faces sometimes. Aside from the typical social media and meetups that were previously mentioned, I wanted to call out two other options. First, mentoring can be a great way to help guide someone else in their career. Here's an analytics-specific mentoring site that connects some world-renowned and industry-leading people in our area to anyone who wants to be their mentee. Also, there are still a lot of in-person and virtual volunteer needs opportunities in the Twin Cities and analytics community. Please consider taking some time to give back to your physical and virtual communities. All right, so now that you have some ideas about what skills to work on and some resources for working on them, how do you maintain your new skill, even after a pandemic? How do you not fall off the bandwagon? The content I'm going to be sharing with you is from a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I highly recommend checking out this book or his blog. In this book, he talks about the difference between habits and goals. Goals are something that anyone and everyone has, like winning an Olympic medal or an Iron Biz. But habit creation is about how you actually obtain these goals and sustain the growth after the goal has been achieved. He argues that you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Think about how people say, oh, it was force of habit. Think about how our lives are full of intentional and unintentional habits that guide our actions every day. So in order to make a lasting change, you need to focus on the system or the habit. He says that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. So if you can focus on making a small amount of progress, the 1% better every day, it will accumulate to something great in the end. All sounds great, but how do we actually do it? First, he deconstructs habits into 4 steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. Cue is something usually external that sparks an interest. Craving is the desire and motivation to obtain something. The response is how you react to the craving, and the reward is the result of the response. Now, in order to use this progression to our advantage, he has 4 corresponding rules for creating habits. 1, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. First, make it obvious. It needs to be clear and in your face. Making it something specific can really help here. Something like, I am going to improve my Tableau skills by meeting my friends every Friday at 8 a.m. to complete the Workout Wednesday challenge. And I'm going to set these 3 calendar reminders and tell all of my friends so that I don't forget about it, as opposed to, I want to be a better analyst someday. Next, use habit stacking. This is one of my favorite things that I learned from this book. This is when you take a current habit and add on to it. So for example, I'm going to work on my Makeover Monday viz for an hour after our weekly team meeting, or while I wait for my coffee to brew, I'm going to think of 5 things that I'm grateful for. This way, you can use the momentum of a specific event, a habit that you already have, and you can carry it over into the new habit. Think of it kind of like getting a running start on your new habit. 2, make it attractive. This seems obvious, but you are more likely to do something if you actually want to do it. You can use temptation bundling. This is something where you pair something you want to do with something you don't want to do. For example, I'm sure a lot of you have done this with your kids. You can watch TV after you finish your homework. Next, find your people. We are the products of the people and the environments around us. Find other data nerds who are excited about fancy new 2020.1 Tableau features and follow them on Twitter and be inspired by their cool vizzes. 3, make it easy. Again, might be a little obvious, but you are more likely to do something if it's easy. We all have a lazy side, but by taking any step, any small step, it's going to be better than taking no step at all. Pick something that takes less than 2 minutes because you will be more likely to accomplish this task. For example, if you want to win Viz of the Day, start by looking at the current Viz of the day every day for 2 minutes after your morning coffee so you can stack that habit, but that's it. Set the bar super low so that you can focus on creating the habit and the continuation of the action rather than focusing on the results of the action. And then after a while, after you've maintained that habit, you can add on to the habit. While I brew my morning coffee, I think of 5 things I'm grateful for. While I sit and drink my coffee, I look at the Viz of the day. Now I download the Viz of the day and I look at their calculations. The key here is preparation. Decide ahead of time what actions you're going to take and plan out how you are going to take them so you can take away as much resistance as possible. In the previous example, it could be favoriting the Viz of the Day page or signing up for a newsletter or blocking that 5 minutes on your calendar every day to make sure it's always available for you. 4, make it satisfying. Obviously, if you're working towards a goal, there's already something that has motivated you towards the end. But sometimes it can get easy to get lost in the trenches if the ultimate goal or reward seems super far away. So, find some way to give yourself immediate feedback or an immediate reward to motivate yourself. So every day you look at the Viz of the day, deposit $1 into your Starbucks or Caribou account so you can get a fancy coffee at the end of the week. Or send a dancing party gift to an accountability buddy or something that makes it attractive. Do something now that makes the habit a positive interaction. Another great way to provide immediate feedback is to use a habit tracker. A tracker helps make the action concrete when it's recorded and can provide some immediate sense of, yes, I did it, there is my check mark. And as data people, I'm sure you've seen a lot of good and probably some bad examples of trackers, so don't stress about it. Make it easy. Use an app. Use a simple Excel doc that just tracks yes or no, did you do it or not. You can always save the data and turn it into a cool viz later. So in summary, today we answered these questions. Why should you skill up? By talking about doing what you can with what you have right now, how you should skill up, and some of the different resources available for technical and non-technical skills. And finally, how to maintain your skill up of choice by building a habit. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope it can inspire you to make some changes in your life. And again, I encourage you to make some small choice, some small change today. If you'd like to connect with me, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. And that is all I've got. So I will pass it back to Serena.
Katrina, that was great. Super inspirational. Do we have any questions, Trisha?
Looks like no questions in the chat. So if anyone wants to raise their hand or go ahead and put it in the chat also.
Okay. So have you, I mean, I know that you, just because I know you personally, like you are very goal oriented and driven, and I'm seeing you achieve some really amazing things in a short period of time. So have you been using this method this whole time, or is this like something that you've sort of evolved to because that was maybe one of the goals, is to be better at goal making or goal.
Yeah, I think that, you know, progress is a lifelong journey. You know, there's no secret to making work. You know, it's about just taking those little steps that help make you better and better. Like I said, the habit stacking thing has been super easy, or like a super useful thing for me, to thinking about like, I'm going to do this thing and then this thing and then this thing and then I'm done for the day. Some of the other things that he talks about are like making sure that your environment is set up for success. So thinking about like, you know, if your goal is to work out more, like going straight from work to the gym if that's possible, so that you don't have to deal with the temptation of sitting on the couch and eating potato chips or something like that. Yeah, and then I think again, just like finding a community of like people that know your goals and can encourage you and have the same goals with you. It's way easier to have a party, if you can celebrate, instead of just like doing it all yourself.
Awesome.
There's lots of resources out there for goals and about building habits. Like on the name, Extreme Ownership. There we go. That's another book that was really great. All those things. So if you want more resources, happy to send what I have learned.
Yeah, well, we can put all that stuff together and then share it out with the community. I really love the fact that you just like, first of all, caveated that like it's okay if you don't, right?
For sure. There's no shame in not progressing in something like this. Like this is a crazy, like I said, it's times. Another quote I really like from John Acuff is never compare your middle to someone else's end. So thinking about like the Tableau Zen Masters or people who won the Iron Viz or Viz of the Day and thinking like, wow, they're so awesome, I want to be able to do those cool Vizes. And then you go to the Viz of the Day and you download it and you're like, I have no clue how they even built this chart. Like, that's okay. It's, that's the accumulation of time and energy and effort into something like that. So
yeah,
take it as a journey.
Sure. Yeah, I make it a point to never compare my middle to anything. So. All right. Well, thanks, Katrina. Okay, maybe we will stop and do another get to know a member whilst you all are thinking about what you might want to share with the group as a best thing I learned tip. So it looks like we have maybe one or two people with their hands still raised that we didn't get to. Brad, would you like to participate in our get to know member? Let me reshare my screen here. Katrina, will you make me the presenter, or am I? Okay.
Yeah, just did.
Okay, cool. So I'll put these questions back up. And here we have Brad unmuted. Let's see if I can do that. I cannot do that. Brad, are you able to unmute yourself, or Alyssa, is that something that you need to do?
I just unmuted.
All right, perfect. You're unmuted, Brad. Go ahead.
He's backing out of the deal.
He's backing out.
I think
I feel like a radio show. Just calling. Caller 9, you're on.
Yep, caller, you're on. Okay, next caller. Looks like I don't see any other hands raised, so.
A new one.
Oh, Avanti. Okay, let's unmute Avanti. Go for it, girl.
Hi, Serena.
Hey.
So my name is Avanti Kulkarni. I do not work right now. I am taking care of my little ones at home, but I'm learning data science. I have a background in mechanical engineering. My grad school was, my research was in renewable energy, but now I'm focusing on data science. I have done some classes in but I wanted to learn Tableau. Serena has sent me an amazing document and I'm learning Tableau. I'm very new to it, but this was amazing. I enjoyed what Luke was showing us, and I thoroughly enjoyed Katrina's talk. I mean, I can totally relate to that. Like that is someone, I want to be better at something, and that would be something I would do. So thank you guys. It was amazing. And I'm already looking forward to next one.
Awesome. Thanks, Avanti. I'm so glad that you joined us, and I'm just sad that we couldn't do it in person.
I know.
All right. So let's switch gears really quick. If you guys, so we'll say, put your hand down if you don't want to share a best thing I learned. If you do want to share a best thing I learned tip, please keep your hand up and we shall call on you. Let's see, it looks like, oh, hold on, let me wait for the response here because I don't want to, we have Michael Johnson, who maybe has the best thing I learned to share. Michael? You are unmuted, we can hear you. We've got an issue with your audio, Michael.
So we might have to remute him.
We might. Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and remute Mike. Michael, I'm sorry, we remuted you because there was a lot of static and feedback.
Alien noises is what we really heard.
Feel free to type up your best thing you learned though. We can announce it through the Q&A box.
Yeah, if you want to share that in the chat or the Q&A, we can relay the message.
I had one thing that I wanted to point out that was actually in Luke's presentation. Luke, were you using a Mapbox map as your background map?
I was not. That's actually a pre-included Tableau one nowadays.
Okay. I thought it was maybe the Mapbox one, but wanted to point out that if you go to mapbox.com, you can download maps there. They have all different kinds of styles and all different types and styles of cartography maps. And they integrate into Tableau. So you can use them instead of the out-of-the-box Tableau, like offline Tableau map or whatever the one, Luke, you used is called. So it gives you lots more options in your background maps for whatever visual you're doing. And I forget that sometimes that you can do that, but it's super easy. You can just Google Tableau and Mapbox and you'll be set.
Cool. Katrina, you have your hand up. Do you have something to share as well?
I do, and I can present I have Tableau pulled up if you want me to present my screen. Otherwise, I can just describe what I learned. The shared out content is grayed out, so I don't know if you need to pass the ball back to me.
Oh, yep, sorry, that's me.
That's okay.
I am dropping the ball. Okay, there you go. And Michael, I did see your note. We'll come back to you after Katrina's done.
Okay, so can you guys see it okay?
Nope, we see Serena. Now we see you. Now we see it.
Okay.
So, okay, so this is something super simple that I don't know why I didn't realize it before, so I thought I'd share. In the color, if you go to edit and you have your color palette set up, you hover over it, the hex code pops up. So you can type it in. So like if you have a color palette that is set for you and you need to figure out what this one is so that you can use it in a different area of the workbook, you can just figure out what it is here. I spent forever, I would like publish them and then use like a color picker thing and then figure out the code. So this is gonna save me a lot of time.
Can
And
you
also like, go ahead.
can you grab the hex code?
I don't think so, because it
Maybe you
doesn't
have to.
stay up. You do a screenshot of it or type it in.
We'll have to put that in the feature suggestion,
Yes.
enhancement suggestion.
That was mine.
Cool. All right, let's circle back to Michael and give him another shot. I think you might be really quiet, Michael.
You have to forgive me because it's not set up the same way.
Okay.
I talk really loud. Can you hear me?
Yes, if you talk really loud, we can hear you, but it seems like you were kind of coming in and out, but go ahead, like just scream at us.
Okay, so mine is basically something that I found out based on some user feedback that I have when I utilize the hierarchies. So on the hierarchies, you can drill down, right, where you hover over and you see the plus sign. A lot of the users weren't really picking up on that. So from a standpoint of if I were to leave a dashboard out in like the middle of like an office on a laptop, right, would somebody know to drill down? So I found a way using sets and then the actions basically to have the drill down perform more like a pivot table would, where you could actually do a click on the drop down and then it would drop it down similar to what a pivot table would look like. So it's just a little bit more user friendly, basically, if you want to say.
Yeah, for sure. I think Luke did you do a presentation on that not that long ago? The set action drill?
I don't know if I did set actions. Maybe.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's super cool. That's actually one of the main use cases that I've seen for using set actions since it came out. So yeah, super useful. Great mention. Great drop in that. Thanks, Michael. Okay, let's see. Who else do we have? I feel like it'd be a lot easier if the raised hands moved to the top instead of having to scroll through this whole list.
You can sort by feedback.
Can you? I need to click it again. There we go. Okay. All right. I think that's all the hands raised for best thing I learned. I have one thing that is like a cross between best thing I learned, but also kind of group therapy because I discovered something that I thought was like a game changer, but then upon further investigation, it only worked sometimes and not others. So I'm going to share this what I found with you guys, and then if anyone knows why it works in one instance and why it doesn't in another, please let me know. So I was doing a whole bunch of reformatting of dashboards that were built in on older version to the newest version, and so there was a lot of like trying to make sure that these tiled containers were the same exact size in the same spot and all that stuff, that it was essentially the same throughout these dashboards within a single workbook. And so, I was doing trying to get drag the line so all of them were the exact pixel width. And on some of them, I had the option to, when I did click on this little drop-down caret, there was an option to fix a width or fix a height. And when I first found out, I was like, holy shit, like this is really cool and will save me a whole bunch of time instead of trying to drag this stupid line around and get it on the exact number. But then when I tried to do it on another dashboard, the option wasn't there. So I don't know if there's like just like if it's the difference between different types of containers. I didn't have a whole lot of time to investigate it right then and there, but I just thought of it, so I thought I would share that out. Any thoughts? What are some ideas or pro tips? Maybe I'm just doing that wrong altogether.
Serena, I had the same question as you did when I first started, and Brad helped me out with this, and that it depends on the type of container that it's put in. So if you put it in horizontal, you can adjust this and then adjust vertical. So just make sure that it's in one of those.
So like if you put in a horizontal container, then you can adjust the width. And if you put in a vertical container, you can adjust the height. Is that what you're saying? Yep. Okay. But if you bring out like a blank, or, a text box or something like that, then the ability to fix just isn't there. Correct?
Right. I believe off the top of my head, I believe so. I think you would need to put those in a container or just float everything. It'd be crazy.
That would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
That's crazy.
Serena, if you want to pass me the ball, I can show it just in my desktop too.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But I wasn't sure. All right, sorry, hold on. Oh, Katrina, you have the presenter ball right now. You've got to pass it.
There we go.
Sweet. All right. Well, in case you guys wanted a little 101 on containers, here we go. So yeah, to your point, Serena, like if you put a random text box out here, you don't have the ability to set height or width. But if you put a horizontal container on there and then put that text box into that container, the horizontal allows you to set the width of that text box within that container.
Mm-hmm.
So make this maybe easier to see. So I can set that width to be that's odd.
Maybe you have to have another container out there.
Yeah.
Minimum of 2.
There you go. So when you've got a horizontal container, you can gives you the option to set the width of the containers within that horizontal container, and it works as you'd expect for vertical.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of these dashboards were developed before the containers was even an option. So, yeah, so I'm trying to
yeah, and like a small like pro tip is if you're working with a lot of containers, you'll have containers within like vertical containers. You can always double click on these gray bar up top, and that'll always take you up to like the parent element. So that allows you to now play around with the horizontal container that I put on right away.
Cool. Thank you for solving that. All right. We still have a lot, seemingly quite a few hands up, but my guess is that that is either people who wanted to do a get to know a member or people who have already shared a best thing I learned. So maybe once again, we'll just ask those of you that don't really want to be called on right now to put your hand down, which is that little hand feature on the lower right-hand corner of the participant box. Trisha, your hand is still up. Do you have something to share? Okay, there we go. It looks like we still have at least one. Sam?
Yeah, to the previous thing that, so Sam Epley here, Luke, what you were showing, if you actually have if you're trying to you don't want to have a floating item out there. If you actually drag, let's say, a vertical container onto the canvas, and then you drag and drop a horizontal container inside of it, as you're going through the layout, you're able to select the specific container piece that you want to edit. And you can, when you have the horizontal selected, you can update and fix the width of particular items. And then when you're referring to the nesting vertical container, you can update the height that way.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I think you guys just saved me a bunch of time. Cool. All right. Anybody else? When we're in person, we have done a session called group therapy pretty normally. And we kind of debated on whether we should try that here in our first virtual setting. Unless somebody is just like dying to have some help solving a problem that they want to share with us, we feel like we're going to skip that this time. But we would like to hear from you guys on whether you think that's something we should try to do or not. On the one hand, it might actually be easier for screen sharing and whatnot, which is something that we don't usually do when we do the group therapy sessions in person. But on the other hand, it's virtual and there's just generally less engagement and interaction in these virtual settings. So let us know what you think. If you have any comments or thoughts about that, feel free to raise your hand and speak your mind. So, okay, well, that is all the content that we had prepared for you guys today. This would be about an hour and a half, so pretty much right on cue with that. Like I said, we really would like your feedback. So, Alyssa, I don't know if is there like a good way to collect feedback from the participants, like a survey, like a follow-up survey, or what's your suggestion for best practices there?
Yeah, a follow-up would be great. I can connect with you after to get that organized.
Okay, super.
Distributed to all the attendees.
Okay.
And where can we post this video, Alyssa, on our community page?
Sorry?
I said, what should we do with the video? Some people are
recording.
Asking. Yep, where we can place the recording.
So you can place it on your community page. You can always send it out as in the follow-up email as a link.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the two places that I would do it.
Okay, we'll probably do both then.
We'll do both for sure. So the follow-up email will include the link to the recording and then whatever resources Luke and Katrina want to share with us. The PowerPoint that I was showing with some of those upcoming events and competitions and projects that you can participate in. And then we'll work with Alyssa to try to get a survey out because we want to know what you guys thought of this. If there's anything, what you hated, what you enjoyed, what we should do differently next time, so we can continue to improve this until we can get back to normal and be in person again. So with that, I thank you all very, very much. Thank you, Luke and Katrina and Trisha, for the content and the support. You guys are awesome.
Thanks for emceeing.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it was really great to hear some of your voices and see some of your faces. And even if it was just looking at your name in this list, I appreciate you being here. So, all right, take care, everybody.
Stay well.